Hey guys, Hanor here. Alright, I'm doing the F-80C review on this episode, and first of all, I'd like to get out a little bit of a disclaimer, because with the F-80C is an entry-level jet in the U.S. Air Force and War Thunder, but the P-80A has been added recently, and is now the true entry-level jet, and it is slightly different than this one. To cover some of the differences, first of all, is that the power plant in the P-80A, from what I have experienced, and like I said, this disclaimer because I have only got a little bit of time in the P-80A, whereas I have a lot of time in the P-80C. The power plant in the P-80A seems to be less powerful. It's the same actual engine, it's just a different modification that's in the C that has WEP. But it just doesn't generate as much power, and the plane, the P-80A, is a lot lighter than the P-80C. The P-80A's base weight is around 6.5 thousand pounds, whereas the F-80C is 8.3 thousand pounds. And in my experience already with the F-80 versus the P-80 is that the P-80 feels a little bit more nimble, whereas the F-80 feels a little bit more energy retentive. So, however, I cannot say for sure because the P-80 that I have is not fully upgraded and everything, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that I'm not comparing them together. Now, before I move on into more information about what I'm reviewing and everything with the aircraft, first I want to give a real brief history of it. Concept work for the XP-80 started in 1943, and this started because of the Allied interceptions of information about the 262s. First prototype flew in January of 1944. This jet was also the first operational fighter to incorporate a built-in engine into the fuselage for jets. Now, the reason I bring up all this is because I know that there is a lot of confusion about like the ME-262 and everything. Why this thing is even fighting it. It's a Korean War fighter. Yeah, but if World War II had been going on for a little bit longer, even a few months, this aircraft would have probably seen service in the war. Now, the F-80 Shooting Star is a entry-level jet in the American Army Air Corps side of things, as well as Air Force, line. There's also the F-9F Panther, which is in the naval line, and it is a better plane. However, the matchmaking is just not as good in my opinion. So I'm going to move on into the advantages of the F-80C. The F-80C is pretty much an all-around average fighter compared to all the other preliminary jet fighters. Or entry-level jet fighters, I should say. It itself has one sweet advantage over all the others in my experience with it, is that it retains its energy so much better than any other jet fighter at the entry level. In most cases, almost all other fighters can out-turn it on a straight turn fight, but if you use radial turns and energy fighting turns, maneuvers, you will soon out-surpass them, keeping your energy high and then eventually going in for the kill. And all throughout this video, you'll see this being put to action. One thing that should be kept to mind, however, is that no matter what, this aircraft does not maneuver like previous energy fighters that you're more used to, such as 109s and Focke-Wulfs and everything. It does not climb superiorly fast until you've obtained this energy. So in the beginning, when you start off after takeoff, you're going to have to climb, and it's a slow climber. And you even have to be aware of, whenever you do get into combat, if a energy fighter such as a 109 or a Focke-Wulf or a Ki-84 or other aircraft of that kind of like are actually above you, when you're first getting in there, and they dive after you, they can actually catch your aircraft. So you have to be very wary in the beginning with this airplane against prop planes. Now, this tends to be the case with all, entry-level jet fighters anyways, but I'm just making sure that you guys are aware of that. And there's been many games where I've been caught where somehow a prop plane was ahead of me, higher above, and just came out of nowhere on top of me. Now, I've had a lot of my friends actually bring up, such as the Sea Meteor as a very high competitor that you basically stand no chance against. And the reason they bring this up is because the Sea Meteor is one of the fastest accelerating aircraft of its battle rating. It's almost at the level of the F4s, or Mark 4s I should say, Meteors, which generally are in Korean battles against swept wings. Now, though this is true that the Sea Meteor out-accelerates the F-80 and it can out-turn it and out-climb it, it can still not actually retain its energy as well as the F-80. And there will be shots in this episode to where I am dogfighting with Meteors and Sea Meteors, and the way I have beaten the Sea Meteors is I force the Sea Meteors to turn. Once they have turned, because they bleed a lot of speed in their turns, then I can unload, extend, get away from them, gain altitude close to their altitude, and I keep doing this until I can actually get the advantage over them. And once that is done, then you can just pretty much boom zoom them to death. And it's a slow process with the Sea Meteor, but it really works. Because of the way this aircraft is average in every way, except for that energy retention part, one thing that I would really suggest is to make sure that you are comfortable with flying fighter aircraft before really flying the F-80C. And I'm talking about in the role of an energy fighter. You should be really comfortable before really trying to step foot in this aircraft. Because coming in at basic level and feeling very unfamiliar, if you try to turn fight with aircraft, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Now, in this engagement here, I'm against 3 Meteors. One of them, I believe, was a Sea Meteor, if I remember correctly, and the other 2 were just regular F3 Meteors. And that right there was a Sea Meteor. Just got destroyed. You could tell by its paint scheme. And in order to keep the energy retention really high and very well for this aircraft, I keep putting it in climbs. This enables you to cut the turn sharper, which is doing radial turns. And then I come zoom, and now I proceed to do another high yo-yo to get it out of the fight. I do not turn with it or attempt to, because that would have been entering a flat scissors, which would have been much more of an advantage for him since he is an actual turn fighting jet. And rinse and repeat. I'm moving on to another video because right after I killed that one, I got shot down by the other Meteor behind me. This video right here is going to demonstrate the difficulties of fighting with propeller aircraft and a jet aircraft. Now, one thing always to keep in mind is jet aircraft are generally pretty flimsy compared to their prop counterparts, so just taking a few hits normally is enough to do you in. I keep the radial turns going. Even though he is in a Focke-Wulf, which is not a very good turner, he still can outturn this, just about any jet, because he's always at a slower speed. I did notice that his nose dropped, so I rolled on the bounce there to try to get him, but I could not cut it sharp enough, so I'm still maintaining radial turns with him. Now, about this point, his buddy's turning around to come back into the fight. And so I'm prepping to gain an energy advantage. So I'm doing a slight little climb as I build up speed. Since jet aircraft are so much heavier than props, they don't accelerate as fast, so you know, that was kind of an important procedure. And that Focke tried to turn around and engage me anyways. Alright, so I'm keeping a radial turn going above the 109K there. And I switched to go back after the 190, but he's cutting it tight, trying to turn under me. My nose wobbled just a little bit, causing my bullets, or dropped just a little bit, causing my bullets to shoot both high, and then when it dropped below the aircraft, he was so close to being shot down right there. Almost always whenever I exit a maneuver, as I just did, exit a merge, I start to let my aircraft build up some speed, keeping that energy high, and then I started maneuvering from there. As you can see, this is becoming a very long and tedious battle. However, they have the biggest advantages: acceleration, actually really almost everything except for top speed and energy retention. It's not that they don't retain energy very well, it's just that this aircraft retains a higher point of energy than they do. Alright. And a miss. So close. Shooting off to gain more and more speed, because they have been gaining a lot of energy as this battle has been progressing. You know, my hat off to them. They were actually a very good fight. Made the fight pretty exciting. The downside is that I'm starting to run low on fuel, and it's a 2-on-1 engagement. Because if it had only been 1-on-1, I guarantee one of them would have already been down. I'm still trying to maintain higher energy over these aircraft. So I shot back up in a climb. We're turning around to engage. I noticed that this guy, what he asked. So I decided to tell him to kill as quick as I could. So I'm turning back around now that I have an energy advantage over the aircraft. So if I turned too much sooner, I would have been in deep trouble. Because that 109K4 has already picked up a lot of energy, and he almost even got me right there. Alright, switching from that target to the next one. And damn. I noticed that I hit bingo fuel at this point, and that my friends are coming in, so it was time for me to get out of Dodge. So you can clearly see that the F-80C keeps a higher energy retention than those prop aircraft. Now the thing is though, and you're thinking, well, it's a jet, duh, but that's not necessarily true. Such a preliminary jets as the 162 actually can bleed off enough energy in turning and everything to become vulnerable to prop aircraft. Same thing with the Russian Yak-15s and so forth. Now in most cases, those aircraft are going to try to boom zoom the prop airplanes, but if the props get up high enough, you know, those jets will be in trouble. Now, this video is going to showcase how well the F-80 retains energy over, or gets higher energy levels over the 162. Because right here, as I'm cutting in, the 162 is going to start gaining in on me again. And there he's gaining in on me because he turns better. However, right now I'm doing a guns D, trying to make myself a hard target as I also dive away, and I'm slowly outrunning him. And it's a slow opportunity, and honestly I'm lucky that I've lived, because really he should have been able to get me through that, but the clouds I think saved me there. As you can see, I outran him, gotten away, and I'm still gaining even though I'm climbing. You know, so very much more energy gain in this F-80C over the 162, and right there that clearly shows how much of a difference that is. So in conclusion, you know, overall, like I said, this is a really great fighter. I do not recommend this fighter though unless you have a very good understanding of energy in your aircraft and the opponent's energy levels. Do not try to turn fight with this aircraft with pretty much any other jet aircraft at the tiering. You're not going to win. You know, you are strictly stuck to energy fighters. Now, whenever you first take off and everything, and you're doing your climb, and it just feels so sluggish, it just doesn't feel like it should be so slow. It shouldn't be an energy fighter, because energy fighter requires you to gain energy, which requires you to gain altitude, and this is very crucial. However, when this aircraft is played properly, and it is, you know, like I said, it kind of defies your instincts to play it properly, but when it is played properly, it is a very excellent aircraft. And when you get it fully modded out, which I worked to mod it out, over time, it is a very, very powerful aircraft. In fact, it is becoming one of my favorite jet fighters. Why? Because I always feel like there's a challenge that I'm intertwined in. Most other jet aircraft, I don't feel this way. I feel like, you know, it's just easy peasy, you know, especially for the higher end jet aircraft. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe for future content to come. A barrel roll. And it's a very simple maneuver, but it can help throw off enemy aim, and can also even put you in a position of attack.